He works at Meticulous Designs. He's one of the sponsors, so he provided some of the food in the back. Just wanted to, bring that up. He wasn't able to join us here today, so thank you, Alex. So my name is David Nordell. I'm with Farmers Insurance at Martellero Insurance Services. We've been in the industry since 1999. Sam has a lot of experience in both the insurance industry and the real estate industry. His wife is a mortgage broker. We really are just there to help our clients and offer advice and recommendations to individuals based on their particular needs. And everyone's needs are different. No one's situation is going to be the same. And we're really just there to try and take some of that confusion out of that insurance decision that pretty much everyone in this room has to make at some point. We're really active in the community. We are currently sponsoring an event, Gratitude to the Military, in conjunction with Keller Williams of Palos Verdes. And as another event that we're doing, or that Farmers Corporate is doing, is the Thank a Million Teachers campaign. And this campaign is basically designed to thank a million teachers. And what we want to do is have kids go online to the website and input their teacher's name and a little blurb about how the teachers inspired them. And that qualifies them for to be eligible for a $2,500 shopping spree for school supplies. Talk to me after. I do have some flyers for you for the Thank a Million Teachers so that you can give them to your kids or their teachers or the PTA, etc. We really want to give back to the community, and we do it every way we can. Lastly, I just want to say that we know that there are a lot of choices out there when it comes to insurance and who you go to for your insurance. And we may not be the cheapest, but we'll always be there to help you and to clarify things and to really be sure that there aren't any gaps or overlaps in your coverage. And that's, as an agent, what we do for you. So please let us be one of those choices when you're trying to make that decision, and just give us a chance. Give us a call today. We'll take care of anything you need.
Thank you, David. And I would just like to say again, Alex from Meticulous Designs, he does web print and photography, and he couldn't stay. He had another event. But if you look at some of our brochures that we have here, he's done those. So that's Alex. All right, now I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I will start off over here with Tamer. And I would like you to just talk a little bit about yourself and your bank.
Sure, no problem. How you guys doing? My name is Tamer Abulez, and I'm with HSBC. I'm a premier mortgage consultant in Rolling Hills Estates, and we basically focus on foreign national loans, hence I guess the invitation here to talk about different international real estate transactions. But pleasure meeting y'all, great turnout, and look forward to sharing some stories.
Thank you, Tamer. And next to Tamer is Raj with the Carl Schusterman Group, and he is going to tell you about himself as well.
Hi, my name is Raj Iyer. I work with law offices of Carl Schusterman, and we deal with foreign nationals, not the transaction, the foreign nationals themselves. So we do all kinds of immigration, employment-based, family-based immigration, deportations. We cover the entire spectrum of immigration. And Carl Schusterman has been there for the last 30 years. We are based in downtown. And I'm a local boy. I live in Torrance. I've been in Torrance for the last 12 years.
Thank you very much, Raj. And now we have Melinda. And tell us about escrow and about you.
Hi, my name is Melinda Hannon. I work at Rancho San Pedro Escrow. I've been there about almost 20 years now. So it's, you have one marriage and then you have the other. So we do quite a variety of items. We do hard money loans. We do bulk sales. I'm the actual bulk sale person in our office. I've had a few, not too many global situations, but I'll be more than happy to tell you when the time comes. And Right now, I think we have another one here, another escrow officer here, which I was so thrilled to meet. And her name is?
Paula from Brighton Escrow.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here and get to meet a lot of the real estate agents we don't get to meet at our office. I'm working at Brighton Escrow in Hermosa Beach, and that's on PCH in Artesia. I've been there for a little over a year and a half. I've been in escrow for over 40 years. And the last 7 years before I came to Brighton, I worked at downtown LA. I was with the F&F companies for 7 years. I did national commercial escrows. Loved it. It's very different. But I'm happy to be back and doing residential because you get to really touch base with the principals in your transactions. And I get to meet them as I'm walking in or out of a restaurant, too, so that's always fun. And thank you so much, and I look forward to giving my little speech.
All right, well, let's jump into this, but before we do, I'd like to introduce my group here, the chair people, and David Potter, Sabina, Vicky, Frank, and we have others that were not able to make it today. So some of you think that you're not global, but I think we might be able to prove you wrong. Hit it, Ernie.
Hey, John, did you happen to see that information on that global real estate class our association is offering? You know, I was thinking to myself, who is going to sign up for this course? I mean, what do we have? Maybe 2 international brokers in this entire town. After all, this is not New York City.
I know what you mean, Dee. I got a call from Ilana the other day. She was telling me all about this new global business committee she wanted me to join. And, you know, she has that CIPS after her name. You know, I told her, I said, listen, I'm just a small-time broker. I'm lucky when I sell a $250,000 condo in the area. So I don't need to be rubbing elbows with the rich and famous from the international arena. Good afternoon, this is John.
Hi, my name is Kathy Roberts, and I'm looking for a realtor. I'm from Canada, and I live here for about 6 months out of the year, and I'm thinking that it's time to buy. Do you know if I need a visa? How about financing? Can I get financing? And how do I convert Canadian dollars to U.S. dollars? I'm also trying to do this all before I go back to Canada. Do you think that's possible?
Hang on a second. Let me get you back to our receptionist, and she'll get your name and number, and then we'll get back to you. Thank you. Hold on. You know, have you ever done a Canadian deal? This lady's asking all kinds of questions about how to do currency conversions, whether she needs special visas.
I don't have a clue, but I have an idea. Why don't you call that Yana, Miss CIPS?
Probably not a bad idea.
Hello, this is Dee.
Hey, Dee, do you speak Brazilian? I have someone interested in your listing.
No, I don't speak Brazilian. Does she speak English?
No?
Well, give me a moment to make a call. I think I might have some information that will help, and see if you can get a name and number from her.
Thank you.
Hello, Yana?
Hi.
Hi, this is Dee. I need your help desperately. We have someone who speaks Brazilian, and she's interested in property. We also have someone from Canada that needs information on visas and needs information on currency exchange. I know that you've got your CIPS, and I know you're a specialist in international.
First, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Call the Realtors Association. They're putting together a list of our members who speak languages and can be of assistance to other members. And while you have them on the phone, sign up for the Global Real Estate for Local Markets course and the CIPS Institute that are being held here next month.
But we aren't international brokers.
It sounds to me like you're up to your eyeballs in international deals right now. I can promise you that the education we're offering will help with exactly the kind of transaction you're involved in. It doesn't have to be $1 million deal with Prince Charles. You are global brokers.
Thanks so much for your help.
Good luck.
Well, John, I think we are global brokers. Are you ready to get started on a new track with me?
Let's go for it. It's a big world out there.
So does that sound like something that you might either have already been involved in or that you would like to? Would anybody here like to make some more money? Frank? All right, so we're going to bring up our own Vicky from the our committee, and she's going to tell us a story that happened in Brazil. So, Vicky, come on up. And so, and so again today the format is we're going to have stories from realtors from our committee and from our esteemed panel here. And then after every story, you can ask questions that you feel are relevant. So, Vicky, take it away.
Okay, the name of the event is, I think, the good, the bad, the ugly, or unexpected. Well, with my Brazil story, it was the bad, the ugly, and the unexpected. It's a personal thing that I was involved with, and it started with buying a spec apartment on the beach in a remote area of the country in Brazil. The developer told us it would be complete in 6 months. And as you know, in construction, everything takes longer than what you're originally told, right? Well, we started receiving photos of the progress of our project, and every photo we ever saw was one person working on the complete complex. Finally, we started seeing photos of 2 people working on the project, and after 1.5 years, our apartment was finished. What we didn't expect was that in Brazil, you have to pay extra for inside items, such as cabinets, closets, doors, sinks, etc. We had no idea. We had assumed that you buy a place that at least you get kitchen cabinets and countertops. That was not the case. So now they wanted an extra $15,000 to finish our apartment. Our goal was to be able to rent out the apartment and eventually sell it. We looked into flights and figured out how to get to our apartment. Flights would take us about 5 days to get there. Were outrageously expensive. When we asked the management company and the developer for the address, all we could find on Google Maps was a piece of industrial land inland, not on the coast. What we were dealing with, the pictures we clearly had were on the coast. Oh, Google isn't updated. We'll have to get you some. We'll have to take care of that. That was the response we were getting. Also, how dare I insult them, the developer, the management company, that I didn't believe that our apartment was built. During this entire 1.5 years, I would receive emails from the developer, the homeowner association management, and our attorney title paper processing company that they needed $15. They needed $100, $500, $25, even $5 for extra things. They constantly needed paperwork re-signed. But re-signing didn't just involve signing, scanning, and emailing a copy. You had to appear in front of a special notary at the Brazilian consulate. Then you had to have that authenticated at the consulate and then return the originals via Federal Express or U.S. mail. At one point, I was at the consulate every single week for 2 months. Some papers were redone 3 to 5 times. I had to write this all down because I couldn't remember all of this, so excuse me for reading. When we were told it was completely finished, I had had enough. I was ready to sell and never wanted to hear the word Brazil again. I tried to find a Brazilian realtor that would list and sell the property for me. One realtor just never got back to me. One realtor had an appraisal done and said that they would list it for me, but she just disappeared and never got back to me. Finally, I got in touch with a member of the SBAOR that is Brazilian, and she was able to connect me with a Brazilian agent that would help me. The process of hiring this realtor took me 6 months. Total time it took to hire a realtor was approximately 1 year. She was able to go see the apartment, see the property, plus confirm that what we had was a good investment in a very good neighborhood. She also gave me the reassurance that all our title paper was legitimate and legal. When you list a property for sale in Brazil, The listing agreement must be signed in front of a special approved Brazilian notary, authenticated by the consulate again. I also had to have my birth certificate, marriage license, and passport notarized and authenticated at the consulate. All this had to be sent via Federal Express. Once they receive these documents, the property can finally be listed for sale. Next, unexpected surprises. The government sets the commissions that realtors can charge, and you can't negotiate it. Because my property wasn't in an urban area, my realtor would have to charge me 10% of the purchase price. She also wanted to charge me for the expenses that she would have to do, such as advertising, driving potential buyers to my property. I was able to negotiate that part away. Next unexpected event or charge, I was to open a bank account with Citibank here to avoid a 1% bank fee. When I went to Citibank, I was told that they would not guarantee that they would give me my money if I were to receive a wire from Brazil. Bank transfers were not allowed over some small amount, something like $500 per month, and not guaranteed. It made no sense to even try to open the bank account. The agent was able to find a buyer for me. I was asked for more paperwork, going back to the consulate even more times. Now I repeatedly requested from my realtor confirmation of exactly what paperwork was necessary so that I only had to send one package via Federal Express. This communication took 4 weeks to get confirmation. The agent was really frustrated with me because she had had a new buyer for me and needed my paperwork immediately. I told her that the paperwork was going out on a Friday and that Federal Express couldn't guarantee the delivery until Wednesday. The new buyer decided that because I couldn't get the paperwork there on Monday, that she was not going to buy my apartment. The realtor gave her my email address, and the buyer and I emailed. I was able to give her the tracking number, and that satisfied her. Now, the buyer decided to get her attorney involved in order to save on taxes, something that I had brought up 4 weeks earlier. Now, there's another unexpected surprise. Finally, the attorney gave her the green light 1 week later. The deal closed in Brazil, but still, another surprise. The bank wouldn't send me my money. Next surprise, the bank must review the contracts to make sure that everything is okay, and then they must send it to the Federal Reserve for them to review before money can be sent. Guess what? The bank wanted additional paperwork before they could send it to the Federal Reserve. So off to the Brazilian notary and the consulate again. Time to wait for Federal Express once again. This time, we're now into the time when the World Cup is starting, which was the next surprise. Okay, my delivery via Federal Express needed to be there on Tuesday in order to avoid the national holiday on Wednesday for the start of World Cup. Except Federal Express closed on Tuesday afternoon and not Wednesday. My package didn't arrive there until Friday due to the holidays and because of the delays caused by the holiday. Because of all the backup business, there's yet another unexpected delay with the bank reviewing the paperwork. This time, they were content with everything that they received and sent it off to the Federal Reserve for their blessing. But the national holidays kept on coming. Every time that Brazil played was the national holidays, with delays in between. I finally received my closing statement from my realtor. We thought, no more surprises. We're up against the clock now of a July 1st deadline due to new banking laws that were going into effect. Plus, our Brazilian Social Security numbers were due to expire soon. We're really sweating it out. Will we be able to close before July 1st? Finally, the money was in our bank account. But still, one more surprise. Not mentioned in my closing statement, we were short $2,800 of what we had been told we would be receiving. Why? The bank charges for sending us the money in US dollars, not in Brazilian reais. So that's the end of my story. Would I ever buy and sell in Brazil again? No way. And the time it took for this transaction to take place, I bought and sold in Nicaragua, I bought 2 properties in Costa Rica. I bought a business in Costa Rica, 1 house in the U.S., and remodeled that home. If you decide you want to buy in Brazil, my personal recommendation is that you know the language and that you plan on spending time in that country. Be prepared for the unexpected in service, fees, and red tape. I offended many because I wasn't appreciative of the fact that they were doing me a favor of building my apartment, providing me with services, processing my paperwork, and selling my apartment. There are many other countries that are much easier to buy and sell than in Brazil.
Thank you, Vicki. So at least this negative story had a positive twist with all the properties that she traded and fixed up during that time. So it's not just a negative story. Does anybody have any questions for Vicki on this transaction, or was that enough of Brazil?
All different channels to find someone. I actually called the board here and got a couple of references from people, but because the property was in a remote, not really a tourist or a well-known city, it was up and coming. Nobody really sold real estate in that area that could be found. It was too far away. I guess it wasn't worth the commission that they were going to get paid, as they would have to drive about an hour from the closest city, which was Fortaleza. So the hour drive to promote and sell the property was not worth it to the people.
Second question, do you have issues with repatriation of profits from Brazil?
By the time we're done with everything, we had to pay our capital gains there, Brazilian. Who knows how the U.S. government is going to look at it when we're done with our taxes this year. So it's really hard to tell, but we did have to pay capital gains. And there's no getting out of it. Just everything in Brazil, you can't negotiate. You have to deal with it. You have to pay it. And everything is, whoever you're dealing with, their attitude is, we're doing you the favor. You're paying us to handle business for you. So we're doing you the favor.
But did you ever go to the property itself?
We never saw the property. I will never go to Brazil after this, no matter how tempting it was because of World Cup. But seriously, if I ever hear Brazil again, no, I've had enough.
Thank you, Vicki. All right, I'm going to go over here to Paula, and let's see what stories you have to share with us about some experiences with escrow, good, bad, indifferent. And remember, we're being filmed, and speak very close to the mic.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you don't have to really go out of the country to have to deal with foreign people who don't speak English. So we had a refinance. It was not mine. And the facts of the escrow were it was a refinance. It was a non-English speaking borrower. The loan broker, the escrow officer had not worked with that loan broker.
What language was it, Paula?
He spoke Spanish. And escrow instructions and loan documents were signed outside of escrow. So we had the red flags went up, were there. Escrow had never spoken with the borrower, had no knowledge if the borrower could speak or read English. At the signing, the loan broker stated that he had explained the terms of the loan to the borrower in his language. Well, evidently he had not. The borrower was not aware that he was signing a promissory note to the loan broker for $15,000, which was going to be paid off at closing from the loan proceeds. The loan would encumber 100% of his equity, and that the loan payments would be substantially more than his previous loan. The borrower sued the escrow, the lender, the loan broker, and notary. and he alleged that escrow breached its fiduciary duty to send escrow instructions and documents directly to him, to close without ascertaining that the borrower's signatures had not been forged on some of the documents. The trial and appellate court agreed that the charged acts and omission claimed against escrow did not qualify as a breach of fiduciary duties. Escrow has no general duty to police the affairs of the parties to the escrow. If you strictly comply with the party's instructions, you have fulfilled your duty as an escrow officer. The court held that as long as escrow is not in collusion with the party committing the fraud, you have no such obligation to notify the other party of suspicious facts that might indicate that he or she is being defrauded. If you do disclose any suspicious fraud to one party or the other, you are wrong, you have just interfered with the contract between the principal and may have breached a fiduciary duty to either or both of the parties. A duty to disclose suspicious fact is not part of our escrow instructions. The lender's instructions fiduciary, our fiduciary duty to the lender is by virtue of the lender's instructions, which may require that the parties sign in the presence of the escrow holder, that escrow disclose certain material facts known to escrow, such as a deed to be recorded after closing, such as a quitclaim deed, the sale of the property in another escrow, a second escrow, and money to be paid directly to the buyer by the seller. So that's my little speech.
Well, I think that is a, well, first of all, any questions on that? On that, Frank?
Do you find very often that there's people trying to defraud immigrant population?
I do speak Spanish, and it's very hard. I don't like to be, even with English, if I have two parties coming in, I leave them in the conference room. I don't want to hear anything because I might hear something that I'll have to disclose to one party or the other, and I just don't want to. I don't want to know anything, because once you have knowledge of something, you're on that train and you're moving forward with it, and court will find you having that knowledge and having had to disclose it to either the lender or between the buyer and the seller. So if I do hear something and I understand the language, I have a duty to that party to let them know what I'm hearing. And I've done that in the past as well. But I let everybody know I speak Spanish when they walk in. We had one, Moira at the office speaks, what is it? She's the Persian language? Farsi. And she has an English accent you would never know. She had parties in there that were speaking Farsi to each other and were speaking negatively of her and actually calling her names. So from now on, she always lets everybody know when they walk in that she understands the language.
I try to set that up sometimes. Speaking French, when I hear someone speaking French, I don't say a word. I want to hear what they're saying. Chris, you have a question.
Is there any, I'm a realtor, not an escrow person, so I'm just curious, is there any particular risk management procedure you follow to protect the escrow company from the scenario you just shared?
I do when I'm handling an escrow when I know that that it's not their primary language, and they may not be able to read it. I always have them bring someone with them who I can converse with and feel confident that they can explain the documents. It's not even the escrow's position to explain documents, so I wouldn't sit there and explain it to them even in their language or in English. But I will have, if they can bring somebody with them, and I can hear what their interpretation is. And I'm mostly concerned that they understand what the loan is, the loan amount, the payments, so as to the contract. And then I do have them sign a letter. I have the interpreter sign a letter stating that they have explained the documents and that the party understands them.
Tamer, why don't you expound upon that?
Sure. What in particular with regards to just whatever my story is? Oh yeah, most definitely. First of all, I commend all you guys for delving into international real estate. A little bit about me, my background. I've been in the business for 11 years. I came from U.S. Bank about a year ago to HSBC, and first thing I was asked and I wanted to find out is, what is a foreign national loan? You know, you hear that, but then you're like, okay, what's a foreign national loan? And basically it's any borrower that doesn't have a social security number, 2 years of traditional U.S. credit, you know, primary residence is overseas. They're, you know, over here either investing to buy a property, or a lot of Middle Eastern, non-Middle Eastern, I'm Egyptian and speak Arabic, or Asian borrowers, you know, buy homes for their kids that come over to the U.S. So basically, my story involves a Chinese client. I had a realtor that came to me and said, hey, we have a client that's going to be buying a property in Rolling Hills. Purchase price is $1.8 million. Our bank will lend 30% down, so 70% loan to value on a loan like that. So basically, the funny thing is, a lot of people think there's a lot more involved with foreign national loans. The documentation is actually less. So initially you'd think it's good, but the foreign national loans can definitely be very challenging in terms of sourcing the money from overseas, or for the earnest money deposits, or if there's large transfers, things like that. So I give that background to basically say the transaction was going fine. All we basically needed from the borrower, he worked in China. His primary job is in China. He was just buying a home that he wanted to maybe come stay in a couple months out of the year, possibly rent out. And most of the transaction was done via email, over the phone. So needless to say, working my normal 8 to 5, 8 to 6, but then on the phone at 10, 11, 12 at night with the client overseas. He did speak English, or, you know, via email, so on and so forth. And with those type of borrowers, if they work for a company, we just typically need a letter from their employer stating that they their income for the last 2 years and their income year to date. Bank statements showing where their money's coming from. We run something called an international credit report that takes about 7 to 10 days to come back. It allows us to verify any credit, that the international credit that they have.
How do they gather that? Can you tell a little bit about the international credit report?
Basically, our borrowers, you know, we try to do it early on because it takes 7 to 10 days. It's not instantaneous like a normal U.S. credit report. They'll provide us with their last 2 years employment history, their last 2 years residence overseas, a landline phone number to verify if they're renting over there, and basically just their authorization. And we have a third party called STARS that basically will contact the employer, will contact the landlord, verify all that information, and then that report's turned back into us. It's a $250 fee to the client that we charge the client, but it does allow us to verify some form of credit. So we had gotten that. Go ahead.
Is it available in all the countries or some countries?
For us, we've been able to do it in all the countries that we do business in. Yeah, STARS will work with you know, third world countries, Asian countries, Middle East. I haven't had an instance where we weren't able to gather one. So, but basically, once we gather that documentation, the international credit report, do the appraisal, everything was going smoothly with this transaction. I had asked the realtor and mentioned to the client on numerous occasions that your money for your down payment and any type of reserves has to be seasoned in an account for 60 days. I said, and in China, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Chinese government over the last, I think it was maybe a little over a year ago, the maximum amount that a Chinese citizen can transfer out of the country is $49,999. So imagine,
In what time frame?
in a year, in 12 months, yeah. Mm-hmm. So imagine if you're trying to purchase a $1.8 million house, you're putting 30% down, you do the math, that's $540,000. if you don't already have the money here, that can definitely present a challenge. For this particular client, he did have a decent amount of the money already with HSBC overseas. The way we get around it a lot is HSBC is, a very large international bank, so we have a number of clients that already have accounts overseas or consider what we call HSBC Premier. They have $100,000 in checking, savings, some form of investment with the bank, and then we'll take that transfer from that account. I had asked the client repeatedly and the realtor repeatedly, I need to see proof of those funds. If there's any large deposits, that can be an issue. If there's money being gifted from other sources, that can be an issue. So client kind of delayed in getting that to us, gave us some of the information. He came literally the week before. It's set up as a 45-day escrow. We typically do those as a 45-day escrow just because of the international credit report and possibly being delayed and some of the other issues. So at the end of the day, he came over to see the home right before the final inspection, actually a little bit before then, but he didn't disclose that he had basically had 9 or 10 different family members transfer money on his behalf. Basically the way it works and the way to do it is he gives the money to 9 or 10 different family members. They each make a $49,999 transfer back to him. It's a gift, and that's how he gets it into the U.S. The issue with that is, and fortunately we were able to overcome it, but it was definitely a challenge. And a little bit more background on the situation is it was a home that was being sold, and the sellers were buying another property contingent on this sale. So, whenever you get in those situations, you've got the list agent calling, the buyer's agent, the borrower, everyone and their mother calling to find out what's going on. So that added a little stress to it. And then, like I mentioned, kind of finding out at the last minute that he had made a number of transfers to family members and back. So basically, we had to get, I think it was 9 different donors, gift letters from the 9 different donors, 9 different bank statements for the last 60 days for each of those clients, our family members showing the money going into their out of their account into our client's account, as well as the original transfers from our client to his family members. So a lot of, probably why I have no hair left, but what do you call it? The last 2 weeks of the transaction were quite stressful, day and night. Having the seller call me personally, the listing agent, dealing with the client in the evening because that was the only time to get information from him. But basically, at the end of the day, with the threatening of being sued by the seller, with the threatening of cancellation numerous times by the seller, we were able to close the transaction. The buyer was able to get their home, and it worked out. But I would say it's definitely a challenging arena to be in, but it's definitely worthwhile. The video that I showed earlier, the realtors that I work with are making more money. They have a niche that separates them from another realtor, and same for me. I was doing well with U.S. Bank, but I came over because I wanted to do something different. My background is Middle Eastern, majored in international relations at UC Davis, and kind of wanted to work with an international client base. And you definitely open up yourself to a whole new realm of business. So.
Same question I asked Paula.
Okay. That would be risk management going through the process or ahead of the time.
Great question. It's a good question because, and it's something I actually forgot to mention. Add an added level of stress to this transaction is the buyer's agent can consistently asked when can we remove contingencies, because the very tricky thing on these type of loans with our bank, and we're in the process of changing it, but we typically only issue a final approval. We won't issue a conditional approval with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 conditions. We need everything in the file. We underwrite it, give a final approval. So both the listing agent and the buyer's agent were asking, can we remove contingencies? I said, I don't advise it. I know that's tough, and we try to have that discussion up front. I think communication is the key, that it's a different type of transaction. but the buyer's agent still released the contingencies of the borrower before we had the final approval. And I said clearly many times, don't do it. The client had put a $30,000 deposit. That was at risk. So that was a even higher level of stress. But to answer your question is basically just being upfront about the process in terms of it's going to take a little bit longer. It may not be what you want to hear, but I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. I'm going to let you know up front this is what's going to happen. It's a final approval. It takes a while to do. The international credit reports take a little longer to come back. Yeah, it can be tricky. Yeah, you're running up against some stressful situations, but at the end of the day, you just have to, It's definitely in those situations. I mean, again, I'll say it may even I may say it may take a little bit longer than 45 days. I'm a straight shooter, so at the end of the day, as long as I'm being upfront, that's the best I can do in terms of providing a service.
I think my voice is loud enough. Okay, I have a question about the funds and verifying the funds. Why wasn't this done at the beginning? Okay, first of all, and you had 60 days seasoning.
He had money in HSBC China. The money was there. He moved money around. He decided to utilize other sources. The money that he moved around kind of null and voided those funds, so we had to utilize something else. But no, that's definitely something we do on the front end. At our bank, we get the documentation up front. We send the loan to something called scenario underwriting even before. We try to do that before the buyer is purchasing something, where we turn in the docs so that the underwriters have a first look at the file. But at the end of the day, and especially in this day and age, I mean, obviously underwriters are going to come up with every last thing. It's just the nature of our lending environment. But no, a good question. It was done up front.
For the recording, everybody will want to know what your question is, so hold on.
Another way to do this, since your bank has a branch in China, right? They can issue a letter of credit and keep the funds in China, satisfy the bank, and pay the seller from proceeds here, and keep the funds over there as a letter of credit. Is there such a thing can take place?
I haven't particularly run across that, but I have had a counterpart that did mention something like that. I wouldn't want to misspeak in terms of the exact parameters. Right, yeah. Yeah, now that's typically the way I've done it is just they open an account overseas, and that way they just do the wire transfer from HSBC overseas to HSBC here. But that's that makes sense. I haven't personally run across that situation, but yeah.
I have a question. Can all of the funds, if they are in the bank over there, can all of the funds be used, or only a portion? I mean, the whole entire down payment, closing costs, everything?
No, it can all be as long as we can source where it's from and it's been in the account for 60 days. Then yeah, we can do it that way as well.
All right, and now for a little levity, but hold on one sec, Ernie. Again, if you don't know if you've been in a global transaction or not, let me redefine again what a global transaction is. It's inbound, outbound, or local multicultural, as Paula was talking about, a local Spanish-speaking person. So it's not just necessarily a foreign buyer coming in. It could be a buyer, an American buying outside the country, and also your local multicultural. So my little story, I was asked by a Japanese company to be involved in a project, a little TV shoot about property in the U.S., in Southern California, and it was geared towards Japanese investors. And I thought, fantastic, I can be on the Japanese stage, and this is fantastic. So we identified a property together. It was a duplex in Redondo Beach. And when I was being interviewed, followed around the property, as you'll see, there was one little odd moment at the end that I didn't quite understand. And they didn't tell me the name of the program, but Ernie?
紹介してもらったのは海からほど近くにある閑静な住宅街の物件。この町で伝統的な造りの一戸建てよ。すごく綺麗ね。残っている家具はほとんどが100年以上前の年代ものよ。
As I'm sure you're noticing, it's a game show.
そしてここマーフィーベッドって言うんだけど、ベッドが収納されているのよ。友人が来た時はとっても便利よ。2世帯住宅としても使用可能な広々とした作りの 3LDK160 平米。100年以上前の伝統的な建造物として行政からも保護を受けているんだとか。どう？このバルコニーいいでしょう。バーベキューもできるのよ。この素敵な家の値段は85万ドルよ。お値段は日本円でおよそ8500万円。
So you can see at the end, I was talking to a little stuffed animal. So I had no idea what this program was, and the eventual buyer of the property was not Japanese. Anyway, so I thought that was just a little moment of levity, and I have no idea who saw this program. I have no idea what they were saying. But it was the actual measurements, and they did reference the price and the location, and further on in the show, they gave little views of South Redondo Beach, and the program's called Rainbow Gene. So not exactly what I anticipated, but that was okay. All right, so Raj, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your field?
We do all sorts of immigration, and you guys all must have heard about this EB5 regional center programs, in which a foreign investor can invest up to $500,000, 500,000 in various areas, and upon its approval, which takes a long time, at least around 2 years, he gets a green card, his family gets a green card, and everything. So my story is about this person. He's not our client. He was never our client in the beginning. He was a Chinese gentleman based out of Mexico, and he has made his money in Mexico and everything. So the story is that he made his $500,000 investment, and since he is in Mexico, he used to come to the U.S. very frequently. He always comes legally. He was on a tourist visa. He enters the United States, and this regional center initial approval takes around a year or so. So around 6 months after he had put in his $500,000, he was visiting. He wanted to see where he can buy property and all those things. And he went to Irvine. He liked Irvine and stuff. He purchased his property, no problem. And he goes to the local school because everybody has told him Irvine is a good school area. He goes to the school. He asks about, hey, what's the process for school admission? The school officers told him, like, nothing. If you are here, if your child is here, if you show me your utility bill and everything, your child can get admitted to the school. And he says, that's wonderful. And lo and behold, his 2 kids, he admitted them to the school, and the kids started going to school in the US. And he always maintained his legal status. They used to get 6 months visa. So before the visa expires, he goes back to Mexico, comes back again, because the visa is always valid for 10 years, but every trip can only be for a period of 6 months when you are coming to the US on a tourist visa. So before his departure date, before it expires, he goes back to Mexico, and after they spend the weekend in their home in Mexico, and then again they come back and they're allowed entry, everything is stamped, and the kids go to school. This went on for nearly around 10 months, and after that his initial I-526 petitions, it's called I-526, the EB5 regional center, the green card, it's called, got approved. In order to get a green card, they have to go to the consulate, U.S. consulate in Ciudad Juarez, CDJ. He goes for the interview, everything is fine, and the officer asks him about his investment, the officer asks him about his business, and everything is going well. And the officer asks him, so we see that you have been going to the US. Does your family also go with you? He said, yes. So your kids, they go, yeah, they go to school in Irvine. Interesting, okay. And then he told him to wait, and they're all polite, they're always nice. They told him to wait for around some time, and after 45 minutes later, the supervisor comes and tells him, sir, we are going to deny you a green card. Like, why? You are being charged with alien smuggling. He's talking to the person who invested $500,000. No, this is at the embassy, U.S. embassy in Mexico, which is the one which issues them the green card. They are the one to give a final stamping saying that congratulations. I mean, there are various ways of getting the green card while you're in the United States, while you're outside. But this investor was outside, has gone for his interview at the embassy. They proved no problem with his investment, no problem with his money. And they said, because he has been sending his kids to school in the U.S., it's like, sir, you've been charged with alien smuggling. The charge is alien smuggling. Immigration is kind of bizarre in some sense. It's like, it's the good, bad, and ugly. And what we practitioners find it's like more like, what do you say, climate change or global warming. You think something is going on, you don't know what's happening, what's going on, and boom, suddenly you get hit by something. So that's exactly what happened. There is this arcane provision in Foreign Affairs Manual and in immigration law, which has given a very broad definition of alien smuggling, which was not intended for things like that when parents and the family come to the United States and this guy didn't know anything. I mean, this guy was like, he went to the school, he had his visa, he has got his I-94, he's been stamped, purchased a home. He went to school, school said, sure. I mean, school always needs money, more students, more money. And they said, great, you can do it. And then we were stumped. And that's the time this guy came to us, because this other lawyer who didn't know what hit her, and then she referred this case to us. And we reviewed the fact. And trust me, I had never seen that provision in immigration law, but there is some provision, and we saw that there was a provision, and then that Congress amended the provisions in 93, 94, made it really broad, and it can be applicable to anything. So anytime one of your relative comes next time and say that, hey, we like it, we are here, we want to send our kids to school. No! Don't send them to school. Take them back outside and like get the proper visa and then bring them back. But this is we have never seen it happen before. But anyway, I mean, speaking to the consulate, there is no appeal process, anything. The consulate, any decision consulate or embassy takes on immigration, it's not reviewable. The justice system of the United States cannot review the decision made by the consulate. There is no appeal process when a visa gets denied abroad. But in case if they have not applied the law properly, the attorneys can go to the legal review division of Department of State. It's not an appeal. They can just look at that law, look at the fact, and see if the law has been properly applied. This legal review division cannot review the facts. Facts is as that has been presented by the person at the embassy. They cannot review the fact, but they can review the law to see if the real law has been applied in the given fact. And we laid out the whole thing. This is what the law is. Yes, it is kind of broad. Anybody can be an alien smuggler. An alien smuggler is like a huge thing. Once you are deemed as an alien smuggler, there is no waiver. It's not like a fraud or misrepresentation, or you can say sorry and then come back. But it's alien smuggler. Exactly. It's like a coyote. But here he's bringing his own family with the proper visa and documentation. And we went, it took us around 8 months. After 8 months, and also when you do this, you can only email. You cannot pick up the phone and speak with anybody at this LegalNet. It's called LegalNet. There is an email address, very cryptic. We do not know where that office is. We can just email them, And if they decide, they will respond to us. Sometimes it takes 2 days, sometimes it takes 6 months. After 6 months, we didn't hear anything. And I again emailed them. And they sent out an email to me, we are looking into this case. Which means it's a great news. Somebody's actually read my email. I'm happy. So, and then after 3 more months later, they won't say, we have approved your case. Dear Mr. Iyer, you may ask your client to contact the embassy, full stop. Which is again great news. If they're telling my client to go back to the embassy, then somebody has looked into the face and has told them, listen, there is a slight problem out here. I mean, this guy has come to the US legally. And this guy did go to the embassy around last month. He got his green card. But the family was out for 1 year for no fault of theirs. They had a property in Irvine. I'm sure he would have rented it out or no. But imagine, they are going out, they are thinking that they're going to come back to the US in 3 days' time, and you're out for 1 whole year. But luckily, yes, he did get his green card. It's great, but we always have stories like that. But
Questions? Hold on. Our very own David.
So can they actually charge someone for alien smuggling if they're not in the United States, if they're on foreign soil?
Look, they will charge you for alien smuggling. See, this is an immigration provision. This is Foreign Affairs Manual provision. The people are looking at it are when someone wants to come to the United States, they are determining if this person is eligible to come to the United States, or if there are any charges of inadmissibility from entering the United States. So in case if they deem somebody has been charged with alien smuggling, they're not going to criminally prosecute them or anything. But what it means is like they are inadmissible to the United States. So they won't allow them a visa to come to the United States, or won't grant them the green card to come to the United States.
Question. The kids were not out of status.
Kids were not out of status.
So how did they apply the smuggling law?
So what they had said was like, you took your kids to the United States on a tourist visa. However, you send them to a public school. While you are on a tourist visa, you're not supposed to go to the public school. If you are a student, you have to go on something called student visa, which is called F visa, F1 visa. So since you took your kids on B2 visa, you have lied to the consular officer and you took them to the United States on some other visa just to avoid this F1 visa. That's what they said. But this is way too complicated, because this guy had no intention, and he had no knowledge. Alien smuggling, there is a concept that knowingly smuggle. He did not knowingly smuggle them. But I have another case which is very similar to this, and out of the blue, that's what I'm saying. This clause has never been used by immigration. Of late, we have seen 2 or 3 cases which is in the same. In my other cases, very similar to this, but this is even crazier. This is because one family, Indian family, come to the United States in 1992. 1992, the family is taking a vacation. They have two sons. One son, the older one, didn't want to come to the United States. He didn't come. The younger one, who was 16 years old, he came to the United States. And you know, they came in the month of April because the school in India closes in April. In the month of May, his cousins, they were in New Jersey. His cousin took him to his school graduation party and all those things. He was very impressed with the school system, and he said, hey, I want to study in the US. And in that case, the parents first says, no, we can't afford it, we can't do it, and all those things. But the kid insisted, I want to go. And then the parents went to the school. They asked him. They said, yeah, sure, he has to give some test, he can get admission. And in that case, parents went to an immigration lawyer in 1992, changed his status from tourist visa to F1 visa, then granted him admission. And parents went back to India. End of story. This kid graduated from his high school, did his undergraduate, did his graduate, got himself a job, found himself a job he became a consultant, software consultant, got married. Over a period of time, he has got his citizenship. He's got a child. His now parents are 70 years old. He keeps visiting his parents. Parents never came back. He wanted to sponsor his parents for green card. And they go to the consulate. Everything was fine, got approved. They go to the consulate in Mumbai. In 1992 incident that the kid went to school, the consulate again charged the parents with alien smuggling. It's crazy, and I'm still fighting that case. We do not know what's going to happen, but it's like suddenly they go to a school and some guy says, ooh, there is this provision. Let's use it. Let's have some fun with it for the next 5 years. That's what seems to be happening right now.
Melinda, you look like you have a question.
I just want your business card.
Right. It's very unpredictable, so it's crazy, but yeah, we do see.
I believe this is a immigration law that exists today. Call it SB 5. Can you please talk about it and describe the steps to follow?
The provision, I think what you're talking about is called EB5. Yeah, it's employment based. It's employment generation. It's been there are 10,000 green cards available. If someone is willing to invest either $1 million and his investment creates 10 jobs for American citizens or green card holders, or they invest in an area where there is more than 150% of unemployment, and there if you invest only $500,000, 500,000 investment in a rural area or in a place where it is less 150,000 employment, that is called targeted employment area, you can get a green card. That's a simple thing. The complication is like there are many regional centers and you can invest $500,000, and time taken. It takes more than a couple of years for somebody to get a green card. And funnily enough, you asked about it. This has been a huge booming business with the Chinese community, investing $500,000 and getting the green card. But again, immigration is kind of quirky because I can speak for 2 hours on various immigration issues, but immigration, how it works in our country, even if it's legal immigration, there is only limited number of visas available for each occupation. So there is something called backlog. And so what happens is like the Chinese, and for example, no country can get more than 7% of the green card in any field. So the Chinese there are around, see, out of 10,000, apparently around 7,000 is applied by Chinese. And if only 7% do the math, it's less than 700 per year. So it's going to be backlogged. In a couple of years, what happens is it's called retrogression, in which even if you apply, even if you get approved, you cannot get a green card because there are no visa numbers available. So that's what is going to happen in, say, another 6 to 8 months' time. But a lot of people have, over a period of time, made a lot of investment. And you got to proceed cautiously on that AB5 because many regional centers are there. SEC is looking into a lot of the financing aspects and stuff like that. And a couple of lawyers have been they've been indicted by SEC because they misuse the funds and everything. So go with a very good immigration lawyer, have their own advices, investment advices and things like that to know how it's going to go. So, but it's there. It's been there for the last 20 years. Only in the last 5 years it has attained its popularity.
And Raj, who works in Carl Schusterman's office, Mr. Schusterman puts out a very wonderful newsletter.
Oh yeah, in case if you can give me your cards or something, we have a free newsletter which goes out every month, and it's got fantastic information about immigration, and it's free, and we can just send it to you. Just give me your email address, it goes out. So.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, well, yes. I was just wondering if the situation with the visas for the kids enrolling in school, would that have something to do, the fact that they're enforcing it now, would that have something to do with what we're hearing in the news about children coming to the United States, foreign nationals coming to the United States, sending their kids here, and would that have something to do with why they're enforcing it?
No, it is not. I mean, the thing is, there's a whole bunch of legal immigration and unlawful, undocumented immigrants going on. By law, none of the schools in the United States can ask for the immigration status of children. They cannot ask for it. So here it was clear a misapplication of the law. It's not because of this, because those guys are never going back to Mexico and asking for a visa. The people who are undocumented, they're going to be here. So it has its own history, and it's again, as you guys, I mean, our immigration history, as you realtors always say, it's location, location, location. It's a first world country bordering on third world countries down. Almost every other country is a third world country. It's bound to happen. It's because of the economic reason, and it's always for the 100 years, 150 years it's been happening. And if you go see the history, in 1800s, English did not want Irish to come to the United States. In 1870, Irish and English did not want Germans to come to the United States. In 1870s, English, Irish, Germans don't want Italians to come to the United States. It just goes on, and none of them wanted Polish. I mean, it's one of the cycle. We go through that every time, and there is no easy solution for that, but it's going to get sorted out.
Raj, I called a bunch of schools a few months ago for some Chinese nationals that wanted their children to go to school, and the public schools said no way. They told me without proper documentation they could not attend. The private schools said just bring the utility bills. So did the public schools tell me the wrong thing?
No, normally I think it should be the other way around. Public schools tells you utility bill. Private schools will say, they need F1 status because they've already registered with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. They can issue F1 visa to foreign students. And the private schools would say, yes, we will admit them, but you need the proper documentation. Public schools will normally, I could be wrong. But from what, so.
Well, I know, all of my clients in public schools, you need your electricity bill and proof that you reside in that district, in that area. So, no, not at all.
Nothing to do with citizenship. Private school perhaps can ask. Private schools can do anything. Private school can ask for any kind of information, documentation, and frankly, for them, it's a lot of money. They get the fees, and they want to get the proper. Status from ICE agents and stuff like that because they're part of the ICE service system, which then they'll have the special permission to have foreign students in their classrooms.
Raj, I have a question for you. You were touching on the limits of how many visas are given. Are there preferred country statuses still out there, and what are those? If you could.
There are. See, immigration, the way it was done around 40 years back, that's the thing. Immigration law has not changed for the last 40 years. So what happens is when they laid out the law, they have said that we have to be fair to every country. We just do not want Europeans. This was in 1960s or 1970s. We don't want Europeans only to come to the United States. So we're going to say we're going to have around X number of visas available, which changed in 1990s. So the bottom line is right now, when it comes to employment-based immigration, there are 140,000 visas available. And no country can get more than 7%. So employment-based category, again, is split into 3 categories. Okay, 4 categories. One is EB1, employment-based category 1, which is available to persons of extraordinary ability, persons who are outstanding researchers and scientists, multinational level executives. So they're like the 7% for each country never gets exhausted. So it's always current, and anybody who wants that, we do a lot of this extraordinary ability, outstanding researchers, scientists from many of these medical research facilities and multinational companies, executives and stuff like that. So for them, the green card is available every year from every country. Move over. The next category is called employment-based second category, which is available for any professional who has got a bachelor's degree with 5 years or more of experience, or a person who has got a master's degree. So now this category, it gets kind of tricky. Again, see, this category also has got like limited number of visa and maximum 7%. And which 2 countries takes up of these 2 visas? India, China. most of the software professionals, most of the medical research professionals, they are all from these two countries. And therefore, currently, if you are from India, if you file for your green card application today, there is something called labor certification application, if you start the process today, it will take 5 years. Legal immigration, 5 to 6 years to get the green card. And around a month back, this was 8 years. And China is again 3 years behind. So, and there is a third category called employment-based third category. This is for any profession which requires either a bachelor's degree and less than 5 years of experience, so 1 year experience, 2 years experience, or anything. This currently, again, India and China are the people who have come from most of this thing. Indians, legal immigration, it's 11 years behind. The current processing time is the priority date, as we call it. They are processing 2004. And by the way, everybody talks about undocumented immigrants, and there is a whole bunch of statistics. If the immigration reform happens, how so many people, last statistics, some national Hispanic statistic, which said that there are 11.2 undocumented immigrants, out of which even 6 million ask for this reform, out of which even 3 million apply for any kind of a home or purchase home. It's a $100 billion market. Everybody speaks about this, all the statistics. The biggest thing is about the legal immigration. So many people who have come here legally and working every day, they have to. Those people are languishing in getting the green card. And by the way, all your clients, anybody familiar with Torrance, Anza, Tallyho Apartments, all the Indian software professionals who are living there, they are sitting on a pile of cash. They all are waiting for the green card because no numbers are available right now. If they get the green card, everybody, I got my friends who are like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with my green card. But those guys are like, have the money. They just do not know when they are going to get the green card. And if that's a huge market. The legal immigrants, they're going to be such a huge market. Some people take the risk. They say, they're secure, not take the risk, but they are secure enough. You know what? I can't just let my life go on till I get my green card. My kids are growing up. I want to buy a house. And they are fantastic. But some people, a lot of people, they don't want to take the risk, not knowing when exactly their green card is going to come. So all those guys out there, there is a huge potential for South Bay real market if the immigration reform goes through. They all will be buying house in this area, irrespective if Toyota moves or not.
Well, that's all very good news. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll reach out to you for updates. Melinda, give us a story.
I don't think mine is as exciting as his, but I have a couple of them, actually. I had one where it was a regular escrow. Everything was going fine. We signed the loan docs. I told the young lady, we need your final funds. Here's your wire instructions. Let's go for it. Oh, my mom's flying in from Chile with a suitcase of cash. Your head starts spinning. You got tunnel vision. It's just like, excuse me? And it's like, and in the back of your mind, you're going, by way of Colombia? How is this money going to get through LAX? So, of course, I had to call the mortgage broker. So we're on the phone, and I'm having a visual of he's in the Exorcist movie, and his head is spinning around. He is having a complete and utter nervous breakdown. So we finally got her to figure out that, no, she needs to find money another way rather than in a suitcase. So we finally managed to be able to get that done, but it was the first time I'd ever really had to deal with something like that, where it was, hello, didn't anybody talk to you about the word sourcing? So it was quite an interesting situation with this young lady, where it was just matter of fact that mommy's flying in with cash. And so we finally, like I said, got that worked out. And then I had another situation where it was just a refinance. A young man's mother had passed. He inherited the property. So this one was sort of like after the fact. Back to Colombia. He does a refi, he cashes out, and he races straight to Colombia to pick up drugs. And the next thing I know, the DEA is in my office wanting to know where he got that money from. He tracked it back to me in my file. Yeah. Fortunately for me, the file was done correctly. Was it crossed my T's, dotted my I's, everything was done. They contacted the lender, we were all checked out, and they realized that he was just an extremely bad boy. So I had one like in the middle and then one after the fact where, yeah, you don't realize, yeah, you're global, all right. I was heading straight down to Colombia. So those were probably the two most interesting ones. I have had a lot of clients foreign nationals out of Taiwan, Thailand, Japan, China, who just come in to the United States. They're still there, but they're buying a ton of property over here. And I'm seeing a lot of that, a lot of all cash transactions. And they're still going on right now. And this has been going on for at least 4 to 5 years that I'm seeing.
And there's always, as I've heard a story from someone at South Bay Brokers, red flags. An agent named David, he had a listing and he got a call from someone in China, and the buyer insisted of being represented by the listing agent. And so he thought that was very strange, that he just insisted. He did not want outside representation. So David said, that's fine, I will represent you, but I want an attorney to be a part of this transaction. And it turned out to be a case of money laundering. And so that person was not able to acquire that property and do whatever he wanted to do with the money laundering. Questions? Questions for our panelists. And don't forget, Tamer's still here. He's back there. I took his seat. Must have questions.
Says anybody can come into this country and buy anything they want. It's when they sell that it's going to be the hard part. They better have a taxpayer identification number. So you can come in and you can buy till that cows come home, but when you're ready to sell, that's where it's going to bite you. And if you're going to do flipping, you better make sure you have that taxpayer ID number, because that's the whole deal. But anybody, any of us, I can have a cousin from out of the country come in and buy with all cash. That's fine. Title's okay with that. They give them their information. It's when you sell. That's where it's going to get you.
And at the time of purchase, many of my clients, when they are purchasing properties, it's kind of funny. Realtors, they have absolutely no problem. And it's always so much amazing. You guys should give a hand to yourself, like foreign people, when they come and say, it's so easy to buy property in the US. I'm sure it's not easy. You guys are doing all the background work. They're happy. Oh man, it's so transparent. My property, like in India, I know about India. One property sells for around, say, 100,000. The next property, you go to the guys, knock the door and ask, 125,000. Why? Because I say so. So there is no transparency. It's like whatever they want to, but they are always so impressed about the transparency, information. Sometimes it's an overload of information, but they get all the information which they want. They're always happy. But my experience as an immigration attorney, again, it's not with the realtors, but I get calls from underwriters. They're called underwriters, who's like in the last 3 or 4 days before closing and stuff like that. And suddenly they're all over his immigration documents trying to understand what's going on. And I'm always kind of thinking like, shouldn't this happen before he says yes to the property or no? But apparently, like, last 3 days of closing, I'm under pressure from my clients sometimes, like, can you tell them that I'm legal? Can you tell me that they should not look at this document, but they should look at this document? And like, we don't charge them any money about issuing a letter confirming that he's in status and stuff like that. But sometimes I'm seeing underwriters asking for those kind of documents.
Well, Raj, I had a comment too to expand on what you were saying. When they do a foreign national loan with us at HSBC, it's required to open up a Premier account with us, and we do our due diligence on the back end with the account of seeing if they're on any type of designated list or anything like that. So, you know, that's another way to kind of verify if they're legit or if they're on any, you know, special list. So.
I had an interesting thing happen to me on a refinance a few months back. It's a refi. It's a simple refi. The family owned the property for like 9 years. They just wanted a refi. Lender funds the loan, and Homeland Security moves in at the Federal Reserve and puts a stop to it for 3 days. And I'm going, you know, huh? Yeah, my refi got stopped dead in its tracks for 3 days because Homeland Security came in and put a freeze on that wire until they can verify this guy wasn't a terrorist. Yeah. And what you know, they were Hispanic, so it was like a very average Hispanic name like Joe Smith or whatever, you know. And no, Homeland Security froze that right at the Federal Reserve and would not let anything happen for 3 days until finally I guess they satisfied themselves and they went ahead and allowed us to close our refinance. Have you had anything like that?
Well, in our escrow program, we have an SNDA program. So at the opening of escrow and at the close of escrow, we hit the button. It pulls through, it runs through all the names, and it'll let you know whether you have any hits that might be an issue. I haven't had any issues with anything, but it's there. You'll have, sometimes I'll get 18 pages, sometimes I'll get 2 to 3 pages, and it'll just tell you if there's any hits.
Because it was an error. That's why it wasn't him. We've got our very own Sabina who wants to tell a story. Raj, did you have a comment? No?
This is a little bit different. It's not involving a purchase, but it's involving a lease. I've had experience with Lufthansa Airlines. I've had a couple of clients that have been transferred from different countries, and mostly Germany, to work here at LAX. And so there was yet another person I heard that was coming to be working here for 5 years. And he was very self-sufficient and not in need of any realtor help whatsoever because he knew it all. And he was from Germany and had been stationed in China for the last, I think it was 5 years. So he arrives here and he's looking to find a little house somewhere within good proximity to LAX. And I was talking with another employee, and she was telling me, she says, Sabina, he's never going to find anything. I know how hard it is. You know, there's no credit report available, nothing. And so he was just going through the papers, and I said, well, if ever he needs help, I'll be happy to help him. Well, after about, I think it was almost 2 months, no luck. Finally, I get a phone call, and yes, you've been recommended. Can you help me? I need to find a place to live here for the next 5 years. So we met and got the process rolling, found a wonderful little house in Torrance, and he was excited. He was here with his Chinese fiance, and she also had been an employee of Lufthansa, but she was not hired here. And so they fell in love with this house. Well, wouldn't you know it, there were 50 applications for that property. So I said, well, we're going to have to really, really work hard on getting this. So my advice was, first of all, we will write a letter of introduction, which I would write one. I helped him write one about him and his fiance. And then I said, you know, let's get a nice photo of you. We'll get a letter of employment. We'll get, what else did we do? Oh, yeah, copies of the passports, copies of driver's license. He had just applied for his California license, so he didn't really have one yet. She had a Chinese driver's license. So we just kind of tried to put together a really wonderful packet about what a wonderful, reliable couple they were. So submitted all that, and also, of course, explained that there was no credit available here because they just moved here. I had him open, of course, a bank account because they wanted to see, verification of funds and everything. So with 50 applications, we put together a really, really good packet. And he was just blown away. He goes, why, what, this is crazy. And I said, well, yes, you're a great employee, and Lufthansa, verifies your employment and all that with a letter of employment, which we got. But I said, there's a lot of competition here. So out of the 50 applications, the listing agent of the property, she narrowed it down to 17. And we were lucky. We were one of the 17. And it just all takes time. And the poor agent, she was overwhelmed with all this work. And then she called me back, and I developed a good rapport with her. That always helps. Long story short, then we were in the final 3. And this was a first for me. The owner had decided he was going to interview us, the 3 finals. So, we were in line, and we had to go over there, and we sat in the living room, and, it was, the couple was really charming, and their English was very good, and they made a very good impression. But the hilarious part of it was the owner of the property, he was a high executive Toyota employee, and he was being transferred to work in Tokyo. And so, they were talking back and forth and kind of chit-chatting about personal things. And it came up, said, oh, I notice, on your application, you have, it was a certain type of Jeep, and I'm not very good with cars, so I don't remember the model. It was an old one. And then Frank, my client, said, yeah, I was Googling your location, the property, and you have a car just like mine that was sitting in the driveway. So they hit it off, and I swear it was the Jeep and the good conversation that got us the deal. So sometimes, even though the odds are greatly against you, it'll work out, but you have to jump through the hoops.
Thank you, Sabina. That's a great story. Now, David, come share a story, please.
So, Raj, is it true with, thank you. With immigration, they have to have an IQ of 72 or less to get hired? Low. And after Vicky was telling us a story, I'm kind of surprised people think America's bureaucratic, but the Brazil thing sounded crazy. So anyways, I have kind of a funny story. I had a referral from a gentleman who was from the Philippines, who his mom had owned a piece of property in Los Angeles, and it was a vacant lot. And he was trying to earn money so he can run for Congress in the Philippines. And I had never met him in person. He lived in the Philippines, but he had a visa to come here and travel to the United States. So everything we did was via email or Skype, talking to him on the phone. And he was kind of in a hurry to sell the property. And this was just after the market kind of crashed. So he thought the property was worth a lot more than it was. But we finally decided on a price that we listed it at. And you know how it is when you guys list a property, you go there and you meet the neighbors and you find out a little bit of a history about the property. Well, I was told there was never any building on the property from the owners. And the mom, I think, owned the property for about 40 years, so I don't know how much her son knew about it. But when I got to talking to the neighbors, they told me in the 70s that there was a multi-unit building on the property, and it had blown up because of there was natural gas into the property. It's near La Brea tar pits. And it just blew up. And I don't think anyone was injured. It was like during the day, so they were lucky. And, eventually we got people to make offers on the property. And one of the things we had to do during escrow was put monitoring equipment on the property to make sure there wasn't too much gas buildup under the property, which had passed. I don't know if they had vented it properly or what happened, but the guy who wanted to buy the property eventually bought it, and we came up with an agreement. Everyone signed off on it. So it was a successful deal, and I didn't even meet the owner in person until the day the property closed. We met, and the part of the Philippines he lived in, he couldn't go to the U.S. Embassy because it was located in Manila, and he was on another island. So he came out, we signed the deal, and it closed, and everybody was happy. But it's just one of those things you never know what to expect. But the easy part of the deal is there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there with foreigners where you don't necessarily even have to meet them in person. You can do everything electronically and get it done and have a successful relationship.
I'll add to that one to get you guys motivated about using your social media globally. So I lived in France. I've lived all over the world, and I think, it's about time that I do some more global work, especially since I'm the chairperson here. And one day, lo and behold, I get a request from one of my Facebook friends, a gentleman that lives in the south of France. He has a small, very small, tiny studio in Paris that he's trying to sell. And would I please help him? So it was a little bit of a learning process because the way they do it there, he was asking 210,000 euro net to seller. So that was without the commission, and I had no idea how it worked over there. But I went off to Paris, and my husband and I spent about 10 days there, went to this property, looked at the property. I've been trying unsuccessfully to help find a buyer, and I have a lot of contacts all over the world. But again, use your social media because you never know where you might get this one lead or someone who might want a property that's outside of our 50 states.
So you are also licensed in Paris to sell the property?
No, I'm not, but I could facilitate a buyer here or there by using another agent there. So I belong to this group, this certification called International Real Estate Specialists, and it's a whole training program and a certification that you can be a party to these transactions. It's a bit of an arm's length. But I was hoping to find an American who spends a lot of time in France who would like a 160 square foot studio, which is 16 square meters. So very small, but very cute, and in the best part of Paris. Anyways, so let's see. We have a question from... No, I just have a quick story also, if you don't mind if I share. Well, come on up. And you need to speak into the mic because that's how it's getting recorded for our website.
Thanks so much. I'm Sam Marler of Farmers. You met my associate David earlier. I just wanted to make everybody here aware that Farmers has a sister company called Bristol West, and we can write auto insurance for folks that have international licenses. So if you come across a client, and they, are here on a temporary visa or whatever, but they'd like to get auto insurance, we can write that on an international license. They don't actually have to have a California driver's license.
Is that a new program? Because I have clients and we have the hardest time trying to get them insurance.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm sorry that happened, but I'm glad to say that my announcement is timely then. Through Bristol West, we've always had it available. Yeah. It's a specialty product, and it's our specialty auto insurance sister company. They also do high risk. I think we all know what high risk is. Yeah. DUIs? Yeah.
Chris?
I have two questions. I'm not sure who can answer, but I want to invite Vicki to, is Vicki still here? Okay. To take a stab at. Does anybody have any information about the Foreign Account Tax Act, FATCA, that Vicki referenced in her Brazilian nightmare story? And then my second question is, maybe Raj knows. You said that China restricts 50,000 a year. What does the U.S. allow going out?
The U.S. has no restrictions, absolutely no restrictions.
No restrictions going out from the U.S.
That's what people love about the United States. I mean, that's one of the foreign nationals when they want to set up business. It's, EB5 everybody would have heard because it's like $500,000 and stuff like that. United States also has got this wonderful investment program for investors who they have treaty with, like many European countries, many Latin American countries. It's called E2 visa, E2 investor visa, which allows foreign nationals to come and set up any business in the United States around, the regulations does not even say how much money you have to invest. It all depends on the business, but on an average, every case which we do is around 100,000, 120,000. They set up restaurants, they set up printing press, they set up purchasing of old cars and recycling those things, consultancy and everything. And one of the reasons they are always attracted to the United States is like, though their own country may have restrictions in bringing in the money, the United States, they can invest any point in time, and tomorrow, even if the business fails, they can repatriate the entire amount back to their country, whatever is left. So that's amazing, the US. That's the reason it will always be one of those big countries, good for business, no matter what we hear in news. And it's from Canada. So many Canadians wants to invest in the United States because of the market we have out here.
So we have 10 minutes left. Frank, do you have a story? Oh boy, well come up. You've got 10 minutes. So come choose your favorite one. Maybe an uplifting one.
Linda, I have a quick question about escrow. How often do you get sellers that are foreign nationals that don't want to withhold the 3%?
They have to fill out a form. They have to fill out the 593C, and depending on what that they are marking on, that we have to. If they don't provide us with the 593C, we withhold 3 1/3. It's no matter what. It's the FERPTA that also, when it's a foreign national, that we have to withhold 10% if they don't have a Social Security number. So it could be 13 1/3% that we're withholding. And also, I just wanted to let you know, when we are going to receive a wire in from a foreign country, we always advise them to start the wire 3 to 7 days, because the feds can withhold the money and clear it before it even hits us.
So does all transactions, when somebody is sending the money to the United States, the feds can?
They can, right? Right. Depending on the area and the name, it'll trigger it, and sometimes they will withhold, and you think you're going to close the next day and you don't have the money. It's because it's being held up.
And I had heard that certain wire numbers or routing numbers are already red flagged. And so when they come up, those numbers are red flagged, and that will stall a process right away. So there are known entities already out there that they keep a lookout for.
There are, on the wire instructions, when they're wiring out, there's a SWIFT number that they have to add in to send it, or for us to even send out. We use a SWIFT wire number going out as well.
Well, one thing I wanted to add is even though there's no restriction on how much U.S. money you can go to invest, I know from helping investors in Thailand, you do have to report anything over $10,000, whether you take in a suitcase or you wire it, whatever. Of my 3 stories, I'll let you guys choose. I've got the one of my crazy Italian guy who got into trouble buying a condo in Thailand. I've got the one of a Hollywood director who was selling his condo in Thailand, and I have some immigrant Peruvian buyers who were buying a condo in Lawndale. Any choices? Lawndale, Italian. Okay, I'll start with the Italian guy, because that one's pretty quick, I think. Buying a condo, and I worked as an intermediary for expats mostly, and some people that were just back and forth between their country and vacationed a lot in Thailand, helping them facilitate the buying of condos, new condos, because the paperwork is different. It's different from their country, and I was there, and I kind of knew what I was doing and could help them through the paperwork. And for some reason, because I look like this, they trusted me. And even though I don't speak Italian or French, most of my clients were Italian and French, because my Thai assistant spoke Italian and French and English. So anyway, I had an Italian, and also what Vicky said about the furniture. If you're buying in a foreign country, a new condo, find out if you get cabinets and furniture and air conditioners, because that usually is an add-on. In Thailand, it's usually sort of a closing gift kind of thing. You usually sign up for it, and you usually get like your choice between page 26 of Pottery Barn or page 27 of IKEA catalog, and that you don't have a lot of say in what goes in, because they do them all at the same time, but you do have that as an extra charge. Anyway, I had an Italian client, a very nice guy, wonderful, personal guy, but he spoke French and Italian and a little bit of English. My assistant did most of the dealing with him. I met with him like one time. And everything was going pretty well, and she was handling him, and he was buying this condo. He was really excited about it. His first purchase, I ended up doing like 3 condos with the same guy. But the first one he bought, I was very explicit. Okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, and wire the money to the bank. And he said, well, I have a bank account in Thailand. Can I wire it to my bank and then, just transfer it from there? And I said, it was really better to wire it into the developer's account, but if you feel more comfortable with that, we'll check it out. We checked it out, and that was okay as long as they could show the paper trail. So that'd be okay. So anyway, I get this call from my assistant, and she's a little bit panicked, which kind of is unusual for Thai people. And she's at the bank. I guess she wasn't quite at the bank yet, but her client was at the bank and called her. And apparently, he worked for Air Italia Airlines. Otherwise, he probably couldn't have done this, but he was at the bank with about the equivalent of $200,000 lira or euro or whatever that was at the time. It just brought it in a suitcase with the crew bags, and he was depositing it into his account so he could buy his condo, and he was all happy. And the bank was like going crazy about this. Where is this money coming from? And so I said, well, call him back. Tell him to just smile, don't say anything, and wait till you get there and explain things. Find out from the bankers what they need to do. Basically, they froze the money. I told him to just agree to whatever. And fortunately, he had taken the money from accounts in Italy, and he could recreate the paper trail. And that satisfied it held his money up for a week to 10 days, but then they released it, and he was able to buy his condo, and we did more business. But you got to be sure you're very explicit about what people do, because we all know that our clients will not always follow our instructions explicitly. And in foreign countries, if he didn't have the paper trail in Thailand, most likely he would have forfeited the money. Most likely, yeah. That's what I was told at that time. I think it would be pretty much the same thing. It would be a lot more difficult to, this wasn't that long ago, but I think it gets increasingly difficult to just walk through an airport with a suitcase of cash without anybody noticing that you have it. So, actually it wasn't, but it must have been euro, not lira. Well, yeah, it's crew, so you carry it on. And the Peruvians, that was a kind of an interesting thing. Peru is known for a lot of wonderful things, llamas and Andes and Inca stuff, but it's also known for some epic bank failures. So these clients did not trust banks at all, and so so you have to understand that when they're doing this. And a lot of the interesting thing of the story I'll cut out because it's just normal short sale, trying to deal with Equator and having rotating asset managers trying to deal with you. So I'll cut all that out and just go to what happened. The client approached me. She already had a lender in place. Now this was an online lender that was an in-house lender for a primarily online broker, and she approached me to find her the place because she knew she was referred to me as somebody that was really good in lawn deal stuff. And so we found a condo. It was a short sale. I vetted her mortgage broker, but not well enough, I guess. He worked for a bank of something, and you would think it was pretty solid, but turned out not so much, because it turned out that she was my client. We found the place. We made the offer. Fortunately, the agent on their side was newly mended, but her mentor was a guy I knew from Shorewood who has affiliation with Brighton. So he accepted our offer, and anyway, it turns out that she didn't qualify. Once her credit fell or something, so we had to bring her parents on to the documents. Now, she was born in Peru, but her English was very good. Her parents, not so much. They're very wonderful people, but we had to have somebody translate. We had a paralegal translate everything. And we went through, it was like about a 3-hour meeting to go through all of the contracts because I want every paragraph translated to them in Spanish just as best practice because I wanted them to really understand what they were signing because I know a lot of times kids will get their parents, oh, just sign this, and it's like, you know, I just want this to go right. Paralegal, the Spanish and no, we didn't have no, it just was verbally translated. So anyways, we added the mother and father. My broker was really happy about that, adding 2 more people onto the contract and having to review all the paperwork and all the initials again. Then it turns out that the father didn't have had a credit score, but he didn't have credit scores with all of the agencies. He only had a credit score with one, and it wasn't, you know, here when they did the Equifax, TransUnion, and all that. So this was an FHA loan. They required the middle, and he didn't have a middle because he only had one. So they couldn't use the father. So now it's the daughter and the mother. And we find out that she did something, and her credit dropped below 600. And we're not quite sure what she did, but she had to come off. So then the brother that I never heard of, I get a call from him in Orange County, and he says, my parents really want me to buy wanted to buy this. I really want them to have it for their retirement, but can I do this? And we said, okay, well, we'll see. Anyway, the lender said he couldn't do it. Said there's no way he could do it. Even with the brother, he couldn't do it. So I said, okay, well, let me take it to my guy who does a lot of FHA loans. I took it to my guy, and he said, I think we can do it with the brother, because the brother, even though he owns another home, I think we can do it, but we'll just have to run anything. What's the FHA number that they pulled? Do you have that? I said, no. You have to get that from the other mortgage guy. So turns out the other mortgage guy hadn't ever pulled it. He'd never run it. It was really a scam. He was trying to move them to a much more expensive product with a lot more expensive fees that would go into his pocket. So he'd never pulled the FHA case. He never ran an FHA anything. All the appraisals, everything he'd done was for this higher, more expensive product, a C-grade paper product. And so my guy, Chris, did a really great job. He did everything he could to get them qualified. He had to bring the brother in. He had to be really sharp. And the brother was an accountant, so he had to really sharpen his pencil on the fair estimate that was given. And anyway, everything looked really good. We are like on I think it was the Thursday or the Friday before we were supposed to fund, like on the following Tuesday or Wednesday, and I think the following Tuesday. And I get a call from the mortgage broker, my mortgage guy, and he says, I got some bad news. We just got news from the condo association. When we did the final, their arrears, their number of arrears is too high for FHA. It had been okay, but this was like the 4th or 5th of the month on Friday. And I said, okay, what do we do? And he said, well, there's 7 in arrears. We need two people just have to pay their dues. And it's like, well, can the president of the HOA give me a name and I can just kind of like go put some money on the, what do we do on this? Can it be Secret Santa time? And we both laughed because obviously we can't do that. But we kind of put our heads together and said, well, why don't you go back, because it's the beginning of the month, talk to the president, have him call the people, find out. And it turns out there were just 3 or 4 people that had, just sent the check late. By Monday, we were good. And so we funded a day late, and they got their first property in America, and we're probably their only property they're going to have in America, but they were really, really happy. And it's now worth probably $100,000 more than they paid for it.
Thank you, Frank. So, do we have any questions? You've got all these brilliant minds here. Oh, anybody have an answer for Chris? No? Don't have to Google that. Yes?
I would like to say to everybody that if they want to sell or buy or whatever, they have a customer overseas, that get familiar with the laws over the overseas so we can exactly know what you do. Otherwise, we're going to go blindfolded and we don't know what to do, and that will cause the problem. So,
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Well, we're going to wrap this up. Frank has another statement.
The one thing I wanted to say about my whole Peruvian story was, you know, when you're dealing with the immigrant community and they don't really know, you really have to dot your T's and cross your I's to make sure that everything's right, because a lot of people they may already be working with and advising them may be trying to exploit or take advantage of them. So you really have to sort of work to protect them at extra higher level than normal.
Well, unless anybody has their own story they'd like to share. Does anybody have their own global real estate story? No? All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up and thank all of our esteemed panelists here. And if you want for a few moments to mingle, but we do have to give the room back to the association, we're going to take a quick photo. And thank everybody for coming. I hope it was educational and fun and amusing, and hopefully it didn't scare you too much about getting involved in your global real estate adventures. Thank you so much.